Imagine this. Your alarm goes off in the morning. You open your eyes, and instead of feeling rested, you feel as if you've been hit by a train. Your body is heavy, your mind is foggy, and you already know the day is going to be a battle. You reach for your phone, scroll aimlessly, maybe even hit snooze, hoping that 5 more minutes will magically give you energy. But it doesn't. You drag yourself out of bed, and the first thought that enters your mind is the craving for coffee. Sound familiar? This is not just your story. It's the story of millions of people around the world who wake up every single day with the same problem: morning fatigue. And here's the shocking part. The solution is often not another cup of coffee, not a complicated routine, not even an expensive supplement. It's something so simple, so available, and so obvious that you've probably been overlooking it your whole life. It's one single glass of water. Now, I know what you're thinking. How can water possibly compete with coffee, with energy drinks, with the entire culture built around waking up tired and then artificially forcing ourselves into productivity? But stay with me, because once you understand what actually happens in your body the moment you wake up, you will never look at that glass of water the same way again. And more importantly, you'll realize that this is not just about hydration, it's about rewiring the way your brain and body start the day. Let's begin with the core truth. While you sleep, your body loses water. You breathe out moisture with every exhale. Your body continues its internal processes, and after 6, 7, or 8 hours, you are mildly dehydrated. That dehydration doesn't feel like thirst, it feels like fatigue. Your brain, which is about 75% water, begins to slow down when its hydration drops even slightly. Cognitive scientists have shown that a 1% drop in hydration can already reduce alertness, reaction time, and memory. And when you wake up in the morning, you're often at 2 to 3% below your optimal hydration level. That's why you feel foggy. It's not because you're lazy, or because you didn't sleep enough hours, or because you lack discipline. It's because your brain is literally running low on its most basic fuel, water. So here's the mental model I want you to take away. Imagine your body as a smartphone. At night, you plug it into the charger and you expect it to be at 100% in the morning. But if the battery has dried out, if the liquid inside the system is low, the charger doesn't give you the full performance. You wake up at 70% thinking you're fully charged, but in reality, your system is handicapped. The single act of drinking a glass of water within the first 2 minutes of waking is like topping up that missing 30%. It's the difference between stumbling through your morning in a haze and feeling that sudden clarity that makes you think, "Oh, I'm actually awake." Now, to make this even more practical, I want to give you a simple framework that you can remember and apply immediately. I call it the 3 levels of awakening. Level 1, restore. Level 2, prime. Level 3, sustain. The first level, restore, is exactly where the glass of water comes in. The moment you wake up, before you check your phone, before you sip coffee, you restore what your body has lost. A glass of water becomes a signal to your brain. We are recharged, we are ready to operate. It doesn't need to be fancy mineral water or some magical electrolyte mix, just pure water, ideally cool, to wake up the nervous system. This step alone already creates a noticeable difference in energy within 5 to 10 minutes. The second level, prime, is where the magic multiplies. Water doesn't just rehydrate, it also prepares your body to actually use the fuel you give it next. Think about coffee. Coffee works primarily by blocking adenosine, the chemical that makes you feel sleepy. But if you drink coffee while dehydrated, your body interprets it as stress. Your heart races, you feel jittery, and the energy you thought you gained turns into anxiety. However, when you've primed your system with water, coffee suddenly feels clean, smooth, and effective. You don't crash as hard and you don't get the shaky hands. This is why the best biohackers, high performers, and even elite athletes begin their day with water before anything else. They're not drinking water because it's a nice wellness tip. They're drinking water because it makes every other input, the coffee, the food, the mental focus, work at its peak. The third level, sustain, is about keeping that momentum. Morning fatigue doesn't just hit when you wake up. It lingers into mid-morning when your brain hits the first dip. If you've started the day dehydrated, that dip becomes brutal. But if you've restored and primed, sustaining becomes much easier. The key here is a second, smaller glass of water about 60 to 90 minutes after waking. Think of it as your booster shot. Not a full bottle, just enough to remind the body that hydration is the baseline for energy. And suddenly, the mid-morning crash either disappears or becomes so minor you barely notice it. Now, you might be wondering, how does something so ridiculously simple make such a huge difference? Here's where the neuroscience comes in. Hydration directly influences blood volume, which means how efficiently oxygen and nutrients are delivered to your brain. When blood volume is low because of dehydration, your brain literally gets less oxygen. And when your brain gets less oxygen, it's not just fatigue, it's lower creativity, worse decision-making, and slower problem-solving. So when you drink water, you're not just quenching thirst, you're literally sharpening your mind. Imagine trying to run a high-powered machine without enough coolant. It overheats, slows down, and breaks. Your brain is that machine, and water is the coolant. Another fascinating point: drinking water triggers the vagus nerve, which influences your parasympathetic nervous system, the part of you that calms down and restores balance. That's why after a glass of water, you don't just feel alert, you feel centered. You're less likely to start the day in stress mode and more likely to approach your tasks with clarity. And here's the paradox. We live in a world obsessed with complicated productivity systems, with apps, supplements, and techniques. But the first step in high performance is often the simplest. No app can replace the basic biology of your body. And the number one mistake is that people overlook the obvious. They look for advanced hacks while skipping the foundation. This is why I emphasize the mental model: restore, prime, sustain. It gives you a clear three-step lens through which to see your mornings. You don't need to remember a dozen habits, you just need to anchor on one action, drinking water, and let that cascade into the rest. Now, let's make this even more relatable. Think back to the last time you had a day that felt completely unproductive from the start. Chances are you either skipped breakfast, overdosed on coffee, or rushed straight into work without taking a moment to reset. What if on that day, you had simply drunk a glass of water before anything else? Would the outcome have been dramatically different? Maybe not instantly, but it would have shifted your baseline state. And when your baseline state shifts, the trajectory of the entire day changes. One small hinge can swing a big door. That's the secret most people miss. It's not about giant transformations. It's about the tiny levers that move the biggest results. Water in the morning is that lever. It's the hinge that can shift the door of your day from heavy and stuck to light and open. So the next time you wake up groggy, instead of asking, "What's wrong with me?" ask, "Did I restore, prime, and sustain?" Because the truth is, your body isn't failing you. It's simply asking for the most basic input it needs to function. And once you give it that, everything else falls into place. And here's where the bigger picture becomes impossible to ignore. If something as small as a glass of water can change the way your morning unfolds, what does that tell you about the rest of your habits? It tells you that most of the obstacles you think are massive are actually the result of tiny misalignments in the basics. When people say they don't have energy, they often imagine it's because of big, complex factors. Not enough sleep, stress, workload, maybe even genetics. But in reality, your body is whispering a much simpler truth. Start with the fundamentals and everything else becomes easier. That's why I call water the first domino, because once you push it, it sets off a chain reaction. The clarity from rehydration makes you more likely to move, more likely to focus, and more likely to choose healthier inputs throughout the day. And the opposite is also true. Skip this one step and the dominoes fall in the wrong direction. You feel tired, you drink more coffee, you skip movement, your blood sugar spikes, and by noon you're fighting not just fatigue but guilt. The difference is not a massive overhaul of your lifestyle. It's whether or not you start the chain reaction with intention. Let's go even deeper into the science, because this is where it gets fascinating. Your body operates on circadian rhythms, internal clocks that regulate sleep, hormones, digestion, and even mood. The moment you wake up, your body is waiting for cues about what kind of day it should prepare for. Light is one of those cues, but water is another. Drinking water within minutes of waking triggers the release of cortisol in a balanced way, which is essential for wakefulness. It tells your adrenal system, it's time to switch from night mode to day mode. This isn't just about avoiding grogginess, it's about aligning your entire biological rhythm with the day ahead. That's why those who adopt this habit often report not only more energy in the morning, but also better sleep at night. By giving your body a clear signal in the morning, you reduce the confusion that leads to restless evenings. It's a feedback loop that starts with one sip. Think about how empowering that is. We live in an age where most solutions promise complexity. 10-step routines, gadgets, supplements, apps. But here we have a practice so simple you can't argue with it. A child can do it. An exhausted parent can do it. Someone who has zero motivation can still manage to pour a glass of water. It requires no discipline, no learning curve, no cost. And yet, it gives back more energy, clarity, and focus than many of the expensive systems people chase. And that brings me to the emotional side of this lesson. Because let's be honest, mornings can feel defeating. You wake up behind schedule, already tired, and before the day has even begun, you feel like you're losing. But here's the gift of the water ritual. It gives you a quick win. Within 2 minutes of waking up, you can check one box. I did something good for myself. That tiny act of self-respect builds momentum. It's not just hydration, it's identity. You go from, I'm someone who always struggles in the morning, to, I'm someone who takes charge of my mornings. And identity is the strongest driver of behavior. When you prove to yourself, day after day, that you are the kind of person who starts with clarity, the rest of your habits begin to align. You no longer need to fight against yourself with willpower. You simply act in line with who you already believe yourself to be. Now, let me challenge you with a question. Tomorrow morning, when you wake up, what will you do first? Will you reach for your phone and scroll yourself into stress? Or will you reach for a glass of water and set your brain and body up for clarity? This is the crossroads where every day begins, and the answer determines whether you enter the day in deficit or in surplus. It's not dramatic to say this choice can shape the trajectory of your career, your health, even your relationships, because energy is the foundation of how you show up in all of them. And here's one more layer that makes this even more powerful. When you choose water first, you're also choosing to delay caffeine. And when you delay caffeine by just 60 to 90 minutes after waking, you avoid something called the caffeine crash. Normally, if you drink coffee immediately upon waking, it collides with adenosine, the sleep chemical, and creates a temporary mask. You feel awake, but as soon as caffeine wears off, the adenosine rushes back and you crash. But if you drink water first and allow adenosine to clear naturally, then have your coffee, you experience clean energy that lasts longer without the crash. So once again, that one glass of water multiplies benefits in ways most people never realize. It's not just hydration, it's better coffee, it's better focus, it's better mood regulation, it's better sleep later on. That's the magic of fundamentals. They ripple out far beyond the initial action. By now, you can see the structure clearly. Restore, prime, sustain. Restore what's lost, prime the system for energy inputs, and sustain the momentum. 3 steps anchored in one simple action. That's the framework I want you to remember. You don't need apps, gadgets, or hacks. You just need this mental model and a commitment to act on it. And the next time you feel like your day is slipping out of control, remind yourself, the chain reaction begins with a glass of water. I want you to imagine tomorrow morning. You wake up, still groggy, but instead of surrendering to fatigue, you pour that glass of water. You drink it slowly, feeling your system come alive. Within minutes, your brain clears, your body feels lighter, and you think to yourself, I've already won. That's the shift we're aiming for. Not perfection, not endless discipline, but a reliable foundation that makes the rest of your day easier. And if you commit to this one action consistently, something else will happen. You'll start trusting yourself again. You'll realize that you don't need complicated systems to feel better. You just need to stop ignoring what your body has been asking for all along. And that trust will spill over into other areas of your life. You'll begin to look for the small levers, the hidden fundamentals, the places where tiny changes make the biggest impact. And that is the real lesson here. So as we close, I want to leave you with one final thought. The difference between a tired, distracted, overwhelmed version of you and a focused, energized, present version of you may not be some massive breakthrough. It may simply be the decision to drink one glass of water at the start of the day. That's it. One action, one choice, one domino. So tomorrow morning, when the alarm goes off and you feel that familiar fog, don't reach for excuses, reach for water. Because the person you want to be, the clear, energized, focused version of you, begins with that single sip. And once you experience the difference, you'll never want to start your mornings any other way.